Will Campbell allowed 29 pressures in 4 games. Really digest that number. 29 pressures in 4 games. About damn near half of those were in the Super Bowl with 14. You know how insane that is? You know how incredibly insane that is to allow almost as many pressures as you allowed the entire postseason just in the Super Bowl? Do you know how insane that is? That is bad. So what's next for the New England Patriots? There's a lot of different directions you could go on, but I don't believe there is a building on this. I don't believe there's a building on this season. I think, just like what Ben Johnson said in his interview, there's no building off of this season. Everybody's back to square one, right? At the end of the day, there's only one winner, and that was Seattle. So what's next for New England? Well, first, we got to put in hindsight what New England did. They're 3-1 in the postseason. Had wins over the Chargers, 16-3, the Texans, 28-16, and then Denver, 10-7, and then lost to Seattle in the Super Bowl, 13-29. Over that span of 4 games, Drake threw 828 yards, right? But averaged about a turnover a game, which, he's a young quarterback. He's not a rookie. He's a young quarterback. He's 23 years old. These kind of growing pains are expected, right? What's not expected is what happened to him with the offensive line up front. The big guys getting after it. Drake was sacked a bunch. I believe I have it on my other page of notes here. Drake was sacked the most times in a single postseason in NFL history. 6 alone came from the Super Bowl. Now, really think about that. You want to think about another comparable playoff run. We'll look of the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl. He was the one with that record previously. Drake just broke that this year. That is an attest to this offensive line and how inconsistent they've been all year. Obviously the glaring issues showed more in the postseason. But I think overall the offensive line play was pretty damn weak. One of the worst performances I've seen in a Super Bowl from a left tackle, Will Campbell, the rookie. It was embarrassing, straight up. It was embarrassing. This is not the kind of record you want to be breaking, right? When you look back as a team, you don't want to say, "Hey, we allowed the most sacks in this postseason. Way to go, guys." You want to be able to keep Drake upright. You want to be able to keep him on his feet, keep his confidence flowing because, while, yes, the offensive line was pretty brutal, I think a lot of that attributed to Drake's turnovers because he was so paranoid to, get sacked. He was always looking to extend plays when even he didn't need to be, even when there was guys open and, there was guys there. He kind of sped his internal clock up. He kind of forced decisions, and I think that was a majority of his turnovers. Will Campbell allowed 29 pressures in 4 games. Really digest that number. 29 pressures in 4 games. About damn near half of those were in the Super Bowl with 14. You know how insane that is? You know how incredibly insane that is to allow almost as many pressures as you allowed the entire postseason just in the Super Bowl? Do you know how insane that is? That is bad. And, it recently came out that he actually tore a ligament in his knee, so I don't think that's an excuse. If you tore a ligament in your knee, you don't play the games, right? And I know Will obviously wants to play, be out there with his guys, but at some point you got to do what's for the team, right? That many pressures in a 4-game span is unheard of. And it's brutal. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's just disaster. That's one word I could really describe it is disaster because your quarterback is constantly having pressure from your side, his blind side, Will Campbell was supposed to be that guy to protect Drake's blind side. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. Um, yeah, it was pretty bad from the rookie. Now, yes, he is a rookie. That's something we have to keep in perspective. Is that while those are terrible, terrible, terrible numbers, especially when you look at him compared to like all time, he's a rookie. He's 22 years old. He's only going to get better. For the team to get this far, no one expected it. Nobody. I'm a diehard Patriots fan. Love my team. Love my guys. I would have never guessed this. So while it's horrible, I think it's important we keep things in perspective of how young Will is also, right? Sometimes guys need that time to develop. Sometimes guys need that you know extra push to get them to where they should be. Look at an example I love to use is Josh Allen. First year was pretty damn bad, right? Turnover problems and just a whole lot of missed throws, missed everything. Second year even. Same stuff from his rookie year, right? So third year they were going in, okay, we need to know if this is our guy. It was still kind of shaky. They get Stephon Diggs, he breaks out, right? Sometimes all a guy needs is that extra push. Um, Now, the Patriots have 11 picks in the 2026 NFL draft, which is most by any team. I think another thing we're also kind of forgetting about is how young this team is, right? How, you know, how the fundamentals are being put in place. Everybody's on a rookie scale deal, just about. Patriots have 20 of their 22 starters under contract. Still, I'm going to say that again. So 20 of their 22 starters, they only have two guys that they're going to need to resign that are starters. So all those guys are under contract. So I think the now here's look. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here. Here's when I tell when people are real fans or not. Right. So on one hand, you have fans that are, you know, mad that they lost, like genuinely upset. Seriously, genuinely upset. Like they want Will Campbell crucified. They want, a whole new offense, more everything. Like they're seriously upset that they lost the Super Bowl. The way I look at it is, like I said, this team's ahead of schedule. This team, nobody would have guessed to be in the Super Bowl. And we could sit here and talk about the postseason, or excuse me, the schedule, whatever, right? I hate that argument so much. That. Don't even get me started. We're going to talk about that in a whole different video. But I think the fact that New England even made it this far, easy schedule or not, this was a 4-13 team last year. We got to remember that. Schedule or not, it's amazing to what they did. And bringing in Mike Vrabel proved to be the right move. I was a little skeptical with Gerard Mayo when he was first hired, and I had right to be suspicious about such. So when Mike Vrabel came in, I was definitely optimistic, but still skeptical, right? His last years with the Titans were not the best. So I had hope, but I wasn't expecting anything great, I'll say. And boy, did he turn things around quick. He turned things around like they picked up in 2016, like they picked up in 2011, minus the Super Bowl loss. But you get the point. Like they just picked right back up to their championship winning days. So I think they have the foundation set, right? Now, you were looking at this as a 5-year plan if you're Robert Kraft. So for them to be in the Super Bowl this early is incredible to the team, right? And just how amazing they've played all year and how they've beat expectations. Schedule or not, I don't care, right? I will say it again. Schedule or not, I do not care. Because if they had that same schedule a couple years ago, I guarantee you this team goes 5-12, 4-13 again. So improvement, right? Improvement. Now getting back to the playoffs, a shocking bright spot for me is Ramondre Stevenson leading the team in rush yards with 217 throughout the entire playoffs. Now, why that's so shocking to me is because of his early troubles he had. Especially the game that pops in my mind just because I was watching it was the Steelers Patriots game when he fumbled, and that was an easy winnable game, and Ramondre fumbling twice, one being at the 1 yard line, cost them that game. So the way Ramondre stepped up in the postseason was amazing. In my opinion, I wish they used the rookie Travion Henderson a little bit more. I think Travion just brings more juice. I have countless videos on my TikTok saying how much I like Travion way back in the preseason, how much I think he will bring juice. And he did. It showed. Um, he's just a change of pace back to Ramondre, which is good to have, right? You think of like Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery. So it's not that I'm upset about that. I'm upset that in the biggest game of the season, Travion was barely out there, right? And I love Ramondre. Ramondre was my favorite Patriots player on this team when we were like god awful, right? When we had nobody. When I'm talking Mac Jones quarterback days, Ramondre was my favorite Patriot, right? And he's still up there. But I just wish we used Travion a little bit more in the playoffs. I think the sample size was there. And to kind of, I don't want to necessarily say abandon, but I can, and I don't really have a statistic on this, so quote me, don't quote me on this, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've seen Travion out there during the Super Bowl. Um, like I said, I love Ramondre. He's an amazing player. I just wish we got the speedy rookie involved more. I wish we got him the ball more in open space. I wish I don't know, do what the Lions do, put him in the slot, move him around. I mean, they tried the jet touch pass, right, later in the game, but where was that early in the game? Right? Where was that spark the offense needed when, we were down 9-0 or even 6-0, 3-0, right? Um I just don't think Ramondre can spark an offense like Travion can. He can have amazing runs. He's awesome in the open field. I just don't think if it came down to it, I would pick Ramondre to be like my guy, to be like, okay, we're relying on you. Break us off one big, right? That's where Travion is. Ramondre is your grinded out ugly yards guy. Travion is your okay, you need yards, watch this kind of guy. So that was definitely frustrating to watch as a Pats fan for sure. For it to be in the Super Bowl and for them to, like I said, I don't want to say abandon, but to kind of abandon Travion. So that's something I hope going forward, Mike kind of notices and tells Josh, call more plays for Travion. But I digress, right? I digress. Getting into some of the playoff stat leaders and where I think we should go draft wise. Kayshon Boutte ended up leading the team, right, in yards. He had that awesome catch against Houston. He played very good throughout the postseason, but he only led with 168 yards. That's only about, I'm doing mental math, like 45 ish yards a game. Because you got to think it was a 4 game span. So 168 yards over that 4 game span. Um, yeah, 42 yards a game for Kayshon Boutte, the leading receiver. That's just on average, right? Obviously, he had a good game against the Texans. So, like, the numbers fluctuate, right? But we're just talking overall average wise. That's who our top performer was receiving wise. Now, this is going to bring me to another point is I still believe New England needs better receiving talent. Not necessarily depth, because you got to think of Kayshawn, Steph, DeMario, Mac, and then, the guys that are even further down than that that rarely seen the field, like Efton Chisholm is a good one. But so I'm not necessarily saying receiving depth, because that's not the issue. I think we more so need to target receiving talent, right? Like, we have the quantity, we don't have the quality. So, and I think Steph definitely made a huge impact on this team. So, who are we gonna get to go with him, right? And I love Kayshon Boutte. I love Pop Douglas. They are amazing number 2 and number 3 receivers. Okay. Steph is the one, right? And I would even kind of put Kayshawn and Pop on the same level at like maybe a wide receiver three. I love all of these players, okay? I'm not trying to sound like I'm trying to be negative. I love all these players. I love every Patriot player. I'm just saying what I think we need to do is maybe get another guy in the draft, right? Somebody who can maybe stretch the defense. All I'm saying is just maybe someone that could stretch a defense a little bit better than them two can, right? They obviously have different skill sets. I think Kayshawn's more of a deep threat. Demario is more of a refined route runner. But I think we just need a little bit more. And I'm not saying much, obviously. Like I'm not saying go out and trade for AJ Brown or whatever, right? I'm just saying maybe a little bit more talent in that department. I think we'll be looking fine there. Obviously, offensive line needs help. I think that's like the main headline coming out of this postseason for New England is the offensive line. Touched on it earlier. I would look at someone like Caden Proctor if he slips. I don't know if he will though, picking at 31, right? So you'd be lucky to pick up someone like Caden Proctor. But if I were to go that route, that is who I'd probably go in the first round. If he's not there, I would probably look receiver in the first. Try to address the offensive line later rounds. Maybe they could even trade up. We don't know how this New England regime is going to work, right? We don't know how they're going to operate. We're so used to Bill Belichick trading back every time. Who knows? Maybe Mike Vrabel wants to trade up. He is an aggressive guy. So that's definitely something they should target. You got to think Morgan Moses is 34. Like, even if Will stays out at tackle, you're still going to need tackle. Morgan can't play forever, right? Morgan Moses is not going to play forever. So I think that's definitely a target they should go after. But like I said, I don't even think he's going to be there at 31. So next point is this might be a little controversial, but Jalen Hawkins was hot and cold throughout the playoffs for me, right? I think of his good game against the Texans, most notably for me. And I think about his bad games, like the Super Bowl, which brings me to my point of outside of Gonzo and Marcus Jones, who's a nickel, right? He doesn't play boundary corner. He's a nickel slot guy. There's not really a lot of secondary help, right? We have Carlton Davis, who played good. I think he needs to slide down to a CB3 role, right? I think Marcus should stay in the slot. Obviously, Gonzo at one. And then we need another guy to complement Gonzo on the other side. If you get what I'm trying to say here, I'm not saying Carlton go down to slot and replace Marcus because Marcus is a phenomenal slot corner, phenomenal. But I have a couple points with him. We're gonna get to that. But and he's also an amazing punt returner too. Like this dude is also another guy that can, give us some juice whenever. So I'm not saying necessarily get rid of Carlton Davis, but I think we need to add somebody on that side of the ball that could help Gonzo, right? Um, yeah, and getting back to Marcus, like he's amazing, but teams will take advantage of Marcus. He is 5'8". He is not the biggest guy. He's super athletic. Do not get me wrong. He is 5'8". A game that I most notably could think of is Atlanta Falcons game. They kept putting Drake London. They had plays where Drake would motion and then Marcus would have to cover him. And Drake London had an amazing game that day, right? When he was on Gonzo, he had no catches, right? But when they ran plays where they would motion Drake around the field and it ended up being Marcus covering him, that's where teams are taking advantage of it, right? That's where good schemers come in and try to find their matchups. So while I like Marcus Jones, he definitely comes with his flaws, but he's still an amazing player. It's just when he's matched with a receiver that is like 6'3", 6'4", that's a problem, right? And even then, he still plays bigger than 5'8". So, like, he will still put up a really good fight. So, I'm not even saying, like, he gets burnt all the time because even against Atlanta, thinking about it, he had good plays against Drake. It's just, for the most part, you know what I'm saying? So, I love Marcus, though. He's awesome. Him, I would say Marcus, Travion, obviously Drake, and then, like, Kayshawn are like the four guys I could think of that could really spark the team just like that on offense. I guess Marcus plays defense, but he played offense. He played we put him at receiver a couple times. So shit, Marcus can play offense too. But yeah, I love Marcus, but we need more corner depth still, right? Somebody big, somebody that's fast and big to not take Marcus's job, but to be the guy that can match up on the Drake Londons when we play the Drake Londons, if that makes sense. Sticking to the defensive side of the ball, I think the front seven is the best thing about the defense, right? Big Milt, great signing from New England. I mean, best signing of free agency outside of Sam Darnold, obviously. Fuck you, Sam. No, just kidding. But Big Milt is definitely that guy, right? He was a game wrecker. Even in the Super Bowl, he was so close to getting a couple on Darnold, and he eventually did end up getting one. And he was a game wrecker last year with the Eagles against Mahomes. So his talent speaks for itself, right? Him and Barmore on the interior is so damn good, and I think that's a huge that was a huge tribute to why we had the number one running defense is because of them two big guys in the middle, right? Um, the linebacking core, I like they played very good. Christian Ellis played super well. He had his games where he kind of took over the game. Robert Spillane played very good. Also, he also kind of had his games where he took over. So I don't really have anything negative to say about linebacking depth. I still think we could go out and draft linebacker. Obviously, it wouldn't hurt. Get some guys to rotate in and out. Get some guys to uh, just kind of like what pass rushers do. Just when you need someone fresh come in, you get someone fresh to come in. So the defense was the highlight of the team in Super Bowl. So I don't really necessarily have a lot of complaints there outside of the minors with like corner depth, but linebacking depth I really like. Front seven I love our front seven very much. I would take our front seven, God, just about over everybody, right? I mean, I'm trying to think like who would I take over our front seven? Maybe the Eagles, but they lost Milton Williams, who we now have. So it's like, would I really take the Eagles? They do have Jalen Phillips, though, which is really cool. Maybe the Eagles. I would say maybe the Eagles is the only team's front seven I would take over ours. Just off the top of my head, of course. Oh, you know what? No. Houston. Got to give credit there. Houston's front seven is nasty. Okay, so Houston and maybe Philly. So that's like, what, 1.5? But my point is we're up there, right? I think we're up there in terms of that. I think, what we can do to get to the quarterback is nice. I think we have a very good defensive unit, especially with the big guys up front. So I like what we got there. In terms of our future, I don't think anybody needs to be panicking. The only thing that's going to change, in my opinion, is the schedule, which is going to get harder, right? We were 4-13. Can't get another easy schedule this year when, we went to the Super Bowl. So the schedule will be harder. But I think we got to go out and be aggressive in free agency. Maybe sign somebody at corner, maybe sign a game-changing receiver if we don't draft one, sign somebody for the offensive line. We have about, I'm roughly estimating here, 134 million cap space, which is still, I think, top 3 or 4 right now, right? Maybe even higher than that. So I think there's a foundation set with New England, right? And while yes, there's things that could definitely be worked on and could be improved, I think that New England's heading in the right direction. I love what they did. I love what they're going to do. I love Mike Vrabel. I love Drake May. I still believe in Will Campbell, obviously. He's a rookie. Give the man some slack. I don't think he deserves all the hate. So that's all I really got for you guys, man. I just wanted to get on here and talk about my favorite team, how they did. I'll have a season breakdown coming out soon, possibly. But if you guys enjoyed, smash that like, hit subscribe, share it to your grandma. Maybe she's a Milton Williams fan or a Drake May fan. I don't know.